You brought up religious or irreligious, or what was your background, your family background?
My grandpa was a Lutheran pastor. My mom is Christian. My dad is a deist.
Yeah.
And
he says he's a deist.
Yes, he's a deist.
Yeah, interesting. Because there aren't a lot of people that usually define themselves as deists nowadays.
Yeah, he's a deist. I grew up kind of going to church. Like I was baptized as a baby.
Like Baptist or Methodist or one of the Protestant?
Lutheran mostly, and then Disciples of Christ.
Okay.
But it was, I think I was around like 12. I was just never really, I don't know, I just never really bought it, and I never really enjoyed it, and I just kind of like, I guess I would consider myself an apatheist for a long time, where
apatheist?
That's
a great term.
I just didn't really care about religion.
I
just didn't like it. My mom's really progressive. She didn't force it down my throat or anything.
Yeah.
But my mom is still
it's still real important to her.
Which is great, and her faith is really important to her.
So your relationship hasn't necessarily been strained with your parents?
No. My parents are super proud of me.
Yeah.
I've done a lot with SSA. Our group won Student Org of the Year in Southern Missouri, so that was pretty cool.
Wow.
And I've done a lot of work with this organization, and even though my mom's Christian, she's really like proud of me.
What is the what is it about the group that is the magnet for you?
For me, I just think where we come from is very religious, and having a group of like-minded people who can get together and talk about things that are important to them and find like inspiration and like wrestle with these ideas that and challenges that you have as like a college kid, and like talk about philosophy and politics and basically be good without God. And another big thing for me is to try to destigmatize being an atheist. And a lot of people think we're bad. And when we first started our group, we were harassed and people didn't like us, and just because there's such a bad stigma with atheists, a lot of people aren't open about their atheism still. Even though like the secularization of the world is increasing, it's still very, like in parts of like Missouri and Alabama and all these places, it's still very much stigmatized. So basically it was for community, educational, wrestling with difficult topics.
Is it still pretty much at that level, or have like moral causes come out of that group?
Humanism, for sure. We do a lot of, like work with the LGBT group on our campus, or women's rights, and I was an interfaith campus intern at my university, so I've planned 2 interfaith campus events where we get people from Mormon,
all the different clubs,
Mormon, Buddhist. Our university is pretty small, so it's like a pretty big, diverse event. And
so are there any particular groups that your group has it's more difficult for them to be tolerant of, let's say? And what I mean by that is, one of the people I was interviewing, they were talking about how sometimes, even among the atheists, there's a lot of intolerance.
Of Christians?
They see intolerance, sometimes to fellow atheists, depending on their political views and so on.
Right.
Like, I think I would say, like I was talking to one of the guys down here, I won't mention who it was, but like Trump's become a volatile figure with atheists. And I was saying, it's really, Trump, from my perspective, Trump seems utterly irreligious, personally, he's irreligious.
I just don't think he... I think they asked him what his favorite Bible verse, and he didn't even know. I definitely don't think he knows much about Christianity at all.
Don't think he cares about Christianity at all.
Yeah, maybe he thinks he's his own God. I don't know.
Not sure.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because he's kind of become a flashpoint. But I was just curious if there's any, because obviously you're trying to have a diverse group, or I would say you're trying to be welcoming, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm here, we're here, and SSA has been great to us. And I'm thinking, are there, like, if someone came into the group who was pro-life, and they were firmly pro-life, and they're
That'd be fine.
they'd be totally fine in the group.
Yeah, I mean, we had a
So it's
Catholic.
truly diverse.
We had a Catholic missionary. It wasn't this past school year, but the school year before that came to every one of our meetings, and we even let him do a presentation.
Yeah.
We would go out for drinks with him.
And it went well.
Yeah, and it went well, and he wasn't aggressive. He just was there to learn. And
But he was a minority.
We've had, I wouldn't say we have a ton of religious people, but we do have like Christian members who come. Now they're not like active members, but they do like to come, and they're not aggressive or anything. So. And
what was was there any? I only asked that because my experience with SSA is that I've met a lot of Catholics in SSA. I've met like truly diverse group of people.
Yeah.
And even though I think the causes tend to skew liberal overall in the SSA, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, I'm guessing that.
Yeah.
But I also have kind of wondered, what would it be like to wander in
As
if you
libertarian.
were a libertarian, or just flat out you write for like National Review magazine. Charlie Cook is an atheist.
Yeah.
Who's huge Second Amendment guy.
And he's an atheist. Yeah.
British.
Yeah.
British.
Yeah. I think intellectual diversity is important, and I have mentioned to people that I think we should include political diversity in SSA, because not all SSA or secular college students are left-leaning, socialist people. Right. So it's like, and they're not. That doesn't make them a bad person, and they also deserve to have a secular peer support. So it's like. It's hard. It's a hard line to draw. Yeah. We have a few libertarian members, and we don't. It's not. Yeah. I do like. I don't like the idea of having a club where everyone just thinks the same on every issue.
I sense you like the intellectual diversity.
Yeah,
what are you majoring in?
I just graduated with my major in computer information systems and business administration.
Interesting.
But I would like to go back and do something more like. History or religious studies or something.
So
like
I'm classics and history, and I'm really kind of strange because I did the Greco-Roman world, the languages of the Bible, Greek and Hebrew and Latin, but not. I went to Columbia University. I went to University of Minnesota. I wasn't doing like seminary training. I am a Christian. But I have a lot of academic interests, and I talk all the time to people who are all over the map intellectually. Has there been any particular argument that you think is like the strongest argument for theism? That's a question I ask people. I ask, by the way, with Christians I interview or talk to. I don't do a lot. I do iPUB interviews, but I go to Christians and I say, "What's the strongest argument for atheism?" Because what happens is a lot of Christians aren't thinking that way, very much. And I'm not just asking why are atheist arguments wrong, but rather is there a better and a worse argument? Because that kind of will show whether a person's really thinking, I think, about these things.
The strongest argument for theism for me is there's a lot we still don't know about the universe.
That's a good answer. That's a really good answer.
And there are a lot of things that haven't been explained by science that could potentially be a higher power. So I think that's the strongest argument for theism.
Okay, I think that those mysteries, the atheists I tend to talk to sort of view those as mysteries. We may solve, we may never solve, but it never necessarily gets you right to the sort of the feet of God, because God obviously, if God in the classical theistic sense, in the way Aristotle thought about God, not because who was totally irreligious, of course, Aristotle, in the way he thought about God, he had philosophical arguments for why he thought God was real. And there's a lot of people that have historically believed his arguments, but they're not religious people. Yeah. Obviously. So, other people like Thomas Aquinas took Aristotle's arguments and then tried to import them into Christianity. And even Aquinas is careful to say these arguments don't show that Jehovah from the book of Exodus is real. These show only the sort of philosophical concept of God is real. Do you feel like you're you feel comfortable with the major arguments and you've read them? Have you or do you feel more like you've heard little bits and pieces here and there about the arguments for God and they're just not that convincing?
Yeah, for me, there's not much there. There's nothing that I haven't already really thought about that could convince me. I'm an agnostic atheist, so I'm not saying I 100% believe there is no God.
Yeah,
but
I sense
just
that.
for me, I just can't. My brain, the way it works, it just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't.
Do you feel like you look forward to actually someday looking really seriously at Aquinas' arguments?
Oh, yeah.
Or really serious at what Hume actually wrote? You know, people talk about David Hume, but very few people actually get in and read it.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm very ignorant. I think a lot of people are ignorant. You don't know anything. And I know I'm 23. I feel like I have a lot to learn. Maybe in 20 years I'll be a Buddhist or something.
Who knows?
But, yeah, I do know that this is just where I am right now, and I don't see myself ever becoming a God believer, but I am open to reading, and I definitely want to absorb a lot more knowledge.
I wasn't really even trying to ask that. Just to be clear, I just was trying to. I'm sure you are aware that a lot of people, a lot of fellow students, probably don't have the same drive to want to continue to read the rest of their life.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to explore, really critically think.
They don't want to think,
So, and some of the most intelligent Christians I know really they take the time to understand why they think the way they do, and I feel like a lot of Christians or just religious people in general they just accept it and they don't think about it.
Sure.
And so I have a lot more respect for Christians who really struggle with the concepts and
I do too.
come to the conclusion. And same with atheists. There's a lot of atheists that are just like, I just don't believe in God. It's like you really should think about why you don't believe in God and why, it's the same thing with
it's a human problem, I guess.
Right. It's just you can't just accept something. And there are a lot of atheists that are like that, where they're just like, I don't believe. But it's like I really took time to, when I was in my teens, to try to figure out why I thought the way I did, and that's just the conclusion I came to.
Yeah.
So
very good. All right, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you.